Hello everybody. Today let us discuss some basics related to algorithms. So in this video let us discuss the definition of the algorithm, what do we mean by algorithm design technique, and the notations that are used for analyzing the efficiency of an algorithm, what do we mean by best, worst and average case efficiencies of an algorithm, order of growth and efficiency classes in a simpler way so that we can remember it. So first let us define what is an algorithm. The word algorithm is derived from a Persian mathematician Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi. Algorithm is basically a sequence of unambiguous instructions for solving a problem. In a finite amount of time. So this is one of the definitions of algorithms. An algorithm is a sequence of unambiguous instructions for solving a problem in a finite amount of time. Okay, so we have a problem, and to solve this problem we will apply an algorithm and we will solve the problem and get output. So this is the notion of an algorithm. So any algorithm should have a sequence, means an algorithm will consist of many instructions. Okay, we give instructions to the computers one after the other, therefore it consists of a sequence of instructions, more than one instructions, unambiguous. Another important requirement for an algorithm is that the instructions that we give to a computer must be unambiguous, means there should not be any confusion. Okay, so that is the second requirement of the algorithm, and it has to produce the output, it has to solve the problem in a finite amount of time. Okay, so that is produce output for any legitimate input. If we give a valid input to that particular algorithm, the algorithm should produce an output in a finite amount of time. So this is one of the definitions what we can give for an algorithm. Different people give different definitions for algorithm. Another definition for an algorithm is a step-by-step procedure for solving a problem, and then the other requirements of the algorithm are given as properties of the algorithm, like the algorithm instructions given to the algorithm must be clear, so meaning it should not be ambiguous, it should be unambiguous. And input, the algorithm should take 0 or more inputs. And output, the algorithm has to produce at least one output, because the whole purpose of writing an algorithm is to produce some output. So therefore the algorithm has to produce some output, and the output that the algorithm produce must be in some finite amount of time, so that it will be acceptable for us for our purpose. Otherwise the output of the algorithm will not be useful. So to solve any problem we have some general guidelines, okay, some broad guidelines which will tell us how we can solve a given problem, and those general guidelines are called as algorithm design techniques. There are many algorithm design techniques. Say some of the popular algorithm design techniques are brute force, divide and conquer, decrease and conquer, transform and conquer, dynamic programming, greedy technique, backtracking, branch and bound. So what do these algorithm design techniques tell? They give us broad guidelines using which we can solve a variety of problems. Say for example, the divide and conquer technique tells that given a problem to be solved, divide the problem into smaller subproblems. Once you divide the problem into smaller subproblems, you solve the smaller subproblems, and then you combine the results of the smaller subproblems to get the solution to the original problem. So this is what divide and conquer tells. So this can be applied to a variety of problems. Say for example, divide and conquer technique can be applied to searching problem, wherein we have the binary search algorithm. It can be applied to sorting algorithms. Okay, so sorting, we have two algorithms using divide and conquer. One is merge sort and the other one is quick sort. So what can we conclude is an algorithm design technique is a broad outline which can be applied to a variety of problems, and also what we should observe is we can apply the algorithm design technique to the same problem in two different ways. Like we apply the same divide and conquer technique to solve the sorting problem in a different way in merge sort and in a different way in quick sort. Okay, so same way different algorithm design techniques tell different things. Like transform and conquer tells given an input, you pre-process the input and transform it to some other form which will help you to solve the problem in a shorter time later. So like this, each one of the algorithm design techniques will just give us broad outlines to solve a problem. So when we solve problems, we must be able to tell how good our algorithm is. So we have designed an algorithm for a problem. We should be able to tell how good or how bad an algorithm is, because for the same problem, many such algorithms might have already been developed. So how do we measure the quality of an algorithm? So the quality of an algorithm may be measured based on the correctness of the algorithm, simplicity, generality, efficiency. So correctness, whether the algorithm is giving correct output or not, how accurate the output the algorithm is giving. Simplicity, how simple or how complicated the algorithm is it easy to understand or is it very difficult to understand? So that is simplicity. Generality, given a problem, can we design an algorithm which can solve a more general problem of this kind? Okay, and finally efficiency, how good the algorithm is with respect to time and space. Okay, so when we see this, correctness anyways we can measure. When we get the output of an algorithm, we will know whether the output is correct or not, therefore the correctness can be measured. But generality and simplicity can't be quantitatively measured. It may not be possible for us to always tell that this algorithm is this % simpler than the other algorithm, or this much complicated, or this much general. So that may not be possible to measure quantitatively. So therefore we analyze the efficiency of the algorithm based on efficiency. And when it comes to efficiency, we have two aspects of efficiency. One is the time efficiency and the other one is space efficiency. So efficiency also referred to as complexity, time complexity and space complexity. So what do we mean by time complexity and space complexity? So time complexity, put it in very simpler terms, is the amount of time that the algorithm takes to solve a problem. Space complexity or space efficiency is the amount of space in main memory the algorithm takes to solve the problem. Okay, these are very important things, because if the algorithm takes too much memory, then it may not be possible for us to find solutions to most of the problems. Our memory may be completely filled with data this algorithm is using to solve the problem. And at the same time, time is also very important, because when we give some input to the algorithm has to give output in certain acceptable amount of time. If it gives beyond some acceptable amount of time, the output may not be useful for us. And nowadays, due to the technological advancements, space is not a constraint as it was in the earlier days, because memory is available at a much more cheaper price. So therefore, most of the time you may not be interested in space efficiency, but still time efficiency is very, very important, because there are a large category of algorithms which doesn't give output in acceptable amount of time even today with any of the algorithm design techniques we have. So therefore, we will restrict our discussion to time efficiency. So how can we measure the time of an algorithm? So one simplest thing that we can do is, we can develop an algorithm, we can run it on some computer system and give some input, start the time, and then once the algorithm gives the output, we can stop the timer and we can tell how much time the algorithm has taken to give the output. So this we can do for varying inputs. Okay, for 100 inputs how much time the algorithm is taking, for 200 inputs how much time it is taking, for 300 inputs how much time it is taking, and we can tell this is the time efficiency or the time complexity of the algorithm. But this is not a very accurate method, because it depends upon the hardware that we are running on. If the algorithm, if the computer system on which we are running has better memory and fast processors, output will appear at a quicker time. So therefore it is always better for us to analyze the efficiency of the algorithm on some factors that are not dependent on the machine, that are independent of the machine on which we run. So therefore what we may do is, one simplest thing that we can think of is count the number of instructions that the algorithm is executing to produce output for a particular problem. Okay, so every instruction that the algorithm has to execute to produce the output must be accounted for. Okay, suppose you have an assignment done in the algorithm, we need to count it as one instruction. An addition operation is performed in a for loop. If a for loop is executed 100 times, those instructions have to be accounted for. And in the for loop statement, we make an assignment, we make an increment. So each and everything needs to be accounted for, and we can tell these many instructions the algorithm has to solve to get output. So this is the efficiency of the algorithm. So for different algorithms, we can count how many times the algorithm calculates the solves the instructions, and we can tell that is the complexity or efficiency of the algorithm. But if we look at it very closely, sometimes accounting for each and every small instruction present in an algorithm may be a very tedious task, and the second important thing is it may not be necessary also. The assignment, which will be done only once in the entire algorithm, or some addition operation which is done once in an algorithm which consists of hundreds of instructions, may be very not necessary for us to do. So therefore what we do is we identify one operation called as the basic operation, which is an instruction which will slowly take us, incrementally take us towards the solution. And generally this instruction will be present in some innermost loops. So it is sufficient for us to account for how many times this basic operation is executed. Okay, so that is the best way of analyzing the efficiency of the algorithm. Say for example, if you take any searching and sorting algorithms, the searching and sorting algorithms are based on comparison operation. We compare and then we make some decisions. In searching, whether the key element is present or not present. In sorting, after comparing, we'll check whether they are out of order or they are in order. If they are out of order, we will make a swap. So therefore the comparison operation can be considered as basic operation for searching and sorting algorithms, and we can count for a given input of size n, how many times is the basic operation computed. So that will give an approximate measure of, for this particular input size, how many times the basic operation is executed to give output using this searching algorithm or this sorting algorithm. So that is what we are going to do most of the times for analyzing the efficiency of an algorithm. And once we get the count, and that count we represent by C of n, count of number of times the basic operation is executed for an input size of n. Once we get that, we will plot it in a graph. We will plot a graph for input size versus time. Okay, so this is the input size. Say for example 100, 200, 300, 400. Okay, and this may be time in milliseconds or whatever it is. So 5 milliseconds, 10 milliseconds, 15 milliseconds, 20 milliseconds, 25 milliseconds, 30 milliseconds, 35 milliseconds, 40 milliseconds. Okay, so once again this depends upon the problem. For some problem 100, 200 may be too large, for some other problems it may be too small. Same thing with the time also. It may be millisecond, it may be microsecond, it may be seconds, depending upon the problem. So what basically we do is we plot graphs. For 100 inputs, how much time or how many times the basic operation is executed. Say here we are going to represent it for C of n. How many times the basic operation is executed for 100 inputs. Okay, so some number of times. So we just plot the graph and we get a curve. Okay, so this will give the running time of the algorithm for various input sizes. What is that time it takes? So once we have C of n, number of times basic operation is executed, we can calculate the actual time that the algorithm takes to give output on a particular machine. How can we do that? So to do that, we need C of n gives the number of times the basic operation is executed. we want T of n, what is the actual time that will be taken on a particular machine to give output using this algorithm. Okay, so here we know how many times we are performing the operation. If we know how much time is needed on a particular machine to execute one instruction, okay, so that we will represent it by TOP, time required to perform one operation. So time required to perform one operation is TOP, and number of times operation is performed is given by C of n. When we multiply this, we will get T of n on a particular machine, how much time the algorithm takes to give output. Okay, so basically, so this doesn't matter whether it is C of n or T of n. If we have C of n, we can multiply it with TOP and get T of n. So basically, let us assume we are plotting a graph for some algorithm for varying inputs, and we are measuring how much time the algorithm takes. Okay, so the curve, whatever we are plotting, we are naming it as T of n. Okay, so T of n is a function which gives us the idea about for inputs of 100, 200, 300, how much time the algorithm is taking. Okay, so this is the curve we obtain. Okay, so now with respect to algorithms, we have something called as asymptotic notations. Which are used to compare the efficiency of the algorithm that we have designed with some standard functions. So the graph that we plotted, there are certain standard functions which we represent by g of n. Okay, so we will discuss about this later. So for time being, let us assume there are some standard functions which are available, which are plotted once again against input size and running time. Okay, we have a curve g of n. With respect to g of n, we are going to compare our algorithm. What is the comparison of our algorithm with respect to g of n? As I have already told you, the algorithm that we designed, we are plotting it and naming it by a function called as t of n. So we need to compare this t of n with this g of n. So for doing this, we have notations, what are called as notations. We have three notations. They are called as big O notation, represented by a O, big omega notation, represented by the symbol omega, and big theta notation, represented by theta. There are also small omega notations. Okay, anyways, these are the important notations that we use. So let us discuss big O, big omega, and big theta notations. Okay, so now what does big O notation tell? Big O notation tells a function t of n is said to belong to O of g of n if there exists if t of n is bounded above by g of n for large values of n. That is, if there exists a constant c and a non-negative integer n0 such that t of n is less than or equal to c into g of n for all n greater than or equal to n0. Okay, so this is what is the definition of a big O notation. A function t of n is said to belong to O of g of n if t of n is bounded above by g of n for large values of n. That is, if there exists a constant c and a non-negative integer n0 such that t of n is less than or equal to c into g of n for all n greater than or equal to n0. Okay, so we will try to understand in a much more simpler way by taking some general example. Okay, before that, let me define the omega notation also. Big omega notation Big omega notation is opposite of big O notation. Okay, function t of n is said to belong to omega of g of n. Okay, if t of n is bounded below by g of n for large values of n, that is, if there exists a constant c and a non-negative integer n naught such that t of n is greater than or equal to c into g of n for all n greater than or equal to n naught. Okay, we'll define the theta notation little later. Okay, but it may be little difficult for us to understand these notations this way. Therefore, what we'll do is we'll take some simple example to understand. So, what is the simple example that we take? So, let us take a very general example, a general problem for which we are going to design an algorithm, and we are going to tell it in terms of these notations, O, omega, theta notations. So, let us assume we have a problem of going from home to college. Okay, a very simple algorithm. Okay, here is my home, here is my college. Okay, the problem for me is to go to the college from my home. Okay, so to go to college from my home, there may be various means by which I can reach my college from my home. So let us call them as the algorithm design techniques. Okay, so one of the algorithm design technique is to go by walk. Okay, so that is a broad outline which tells us how we can solve this problem. Okay, so second, we may go from home to college by a vehicle. Okay, so let us consider only these two. So there are two algorithm design techniques to solve this problem. One is we can go by walk and the other is we can go by vehicle. So when we look at this example itself, we will get to know different algorithm design techniques solve the problem at different speeds. Okay, and we may get solutions to the problem at speeds that will dramatically reduce the overall effort. And also using the same algorithm design technique, we can have multiple algorithms. When we take vehicle, okay, we may have a two-wheeler, we may have a four-wheeler. Okay, so therefore there are multiple means when we consider a vehicle as an algorithm design technique. Just like we have in divide and conquer, we have merge sort and quick sort. So there can be multiple algorithms using the same algorithm design technique. Okay, so now when we reach the college from the home, it will take some amount of time for us to reach using any one of the algorithm design techniques. Okay, so to understand, let us take only one algorithm design technique, walking. Okay, so when if we want to find out what is the time that we take to reach the college, assuming that there is no disturbance along the path, there will be some minimum amount of time that will be required for us to reach the college, faster than which, using this particular algorithm design technique, using this particular means, we can't reach the college. Okay, so that is there is some minimum time requirement. Okay, say for example, if 30 minutes is the minimum requirement for me to reach the college from my house, it means that I can't reach the college from my home in less than 30 minutes by walking. Means I can't solve this problem in less than 30 minutes using this particular algorithm design technique. For this particular algorithm design technique, using this particular algorithm, this is the fastest time that I can achieve. Okay, using some other algorithm design technique, using a vehicle, maybe I may reach in 10 minutes, but it may not be possible for me to reach the college in faster than 10 minutes using vehicle also. Okay, so what we can observe is there is some bound on the time, minimum time that is required for me to reach my college from my home, faster than which I can't reach my college. Okay, so this lower bound, whatever we have, is nothing but the omega notation. Okay, the lower bound whatever we have is the omega notation. Okay, which will tell, so you have found out on various days, on different days, you have walked and you have plotted a graph. Okay, on day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, how much time I have taken to reach the college from my home. Okay, so you might have taken different amounts of time. Okay, but you know that you can't reach the college in less than 30 minutes. Okay, so that there is a bound from below, lower bound. Okay, so it means that to reach the college you will require a time of at least minimum 30 minutes, okay, or greater than that, but not less than that. So therefore this is some standard graph that we have, g of n. This is the graph that you have found out. Okay, here we have n naught. I'll tell you what this is. Okay, so now when you see, this is the minimum time that is required to reach the college from the home. For that you have plotted some graph, and when you have plotted graphs, so these are the times that you got. Okay, so here we are telling the minimum amount of time that is required is this much, 30 minutes, and you can never reach the college in less than 30 minutes. That is the minimum amount of time, lower bound. Okay, so that is why big omega notation tells a function t of n is said to belong to g of n if t of n is bounded from below by g of n for large values of n. That is, if t of n is greater than or equal to c into g of n. Okay, so therefore here we are telling the time taken t of n will always be greater than, or it may be equal. See, like it is equal here, it may be greater than or always equal to g of n, that g of n multiplied by some constant, so that the curve can move to fit to t of n as close as possible. Okay, c into g of n for all n greater than or equal to n naught. So why we need this is, the algorithm, the graph may not satisfy the condition for some small values of n. Okay, maybe say, depending on, once again depends upon the problem, maybe some 100 or 1000 values, the curves may, sometimes this may go up, sometimes that may go up. But starting from this value n naught, we are telling the time t naught will always be greater than or equal to c into g of n. So that is omega notation. Okay, so it gives a bound, lower bound. So it is the minimum effort that we need to solve the problem. Okay, with lesser effort than that, the problem can't be solved using this particular algorithm. So that is what is our claim. So we are telling some minimum amount of effort is required to solve this problem, and that is this. This is the minimum amount of effort that you require. With lesser effort than this, you can never solve this problem. So that is what is a omega notation. Okay, so now the same way, when we want to know big O notation, okay, as I told, just like a minimum time requirement, there will also be a there will also be maximum time that may be needed for you to reach the college from the home. Okay, so however slow you walk on this path, there may be some maximum time. Okay, say for example 70 minutes is the maximum time using this particular algorithm design technique. More than that time will not be required for you to solve the problem. So you are telling the upper bound, you are telling this is the maximum effort that I will require to solve this problem. More than that is not at all required for me to solve the problem. So nobody else can come and tell it requires 71 minutes also, or 70 minutes 1 second also, because you are telling a upper bound. Okay, so using the other algorithm design technique, this bound may be, using some other algorithm it may be something different. So therefore here we are telling a upper bound, and therefore, okay, we can simply interchange the curves. Okay, so here what we are telling is, we are telling t of n will always be less than or equal to c into g of n. So it will never go beyond. Means I am giving you assurance that my algorithm will not take more time than this g of n. That is the maximum time it takes. It takes less than that, or at most equal to that. More than that, effort is not at all required for me to solve this particular problem. So that is the O notation. Okay, therefore we tell O notation bounds the curve t of n from above. It bounds the curve from above so that the curve cannot go beyond that particular curve. It will be less than or equal to. So this is what is a O notation. So O notation gives upper bound, omega notation gives a lower bound. O notation tells the maximum time or maximum effort that you have to put to solve the problem. Omega notation tells you the minimum effort that you have to put to solve a problem. Lesser than that, the problem cannot be solved, and more than that, omega O notation is not required. Okay, so more than this is not required to solve the problem. That is what we have to understand by this O and omega notation. Okay, so theta notation big theta. So big theta notation, it tells a function t of n is said to belong to theta of g of n. Okay, if c1 into g of n is less than or equal to t of n, which is less than or equal to c2 into g of n. Okay, means the function t of n is bounded both from above and below by the same function g of n, but with a different constant c1 and c2. Okay, so therefore in a theta notation, okay, you will have similar curves here. Okay, if this is c1 into g of n and this is c2 into g of n, then the algorithm that you are going to plot, okay, will always be in between this. It will be somewhere in between this t of n. Okay, so this is the initial input n0. Lesser than that, it may misbehave. Okay, sometimes it may go above this, sometimes it may go below this. But starting from this input n0, your curve t of n will always be in between c1 into g of n and c2 into g of n. The curve g of n is same, but the constant is different to fit this t of n in between the curve g of n. So that is theta notation. Okay. So what is best case, worst case and average case? Best case is what is the fastest time the algorithm will take to give output for a given problem of size n. That is the minimum amount of time required by the algorithm to give output for that particular problem of size n, faster than which the algorithm cannot produce output for that particular problem. That is what the best case tells. Okay, we generally tell the best case is the fastest time that the algorithm will take to give the output. It is correct, but if the answer has to be complete, faster than which the algorithm cannot give output in the best case. So what does it mean? See, if we take the linear search algorithm, best case occurs for linear search algorithm, the key element is present in the first position of the list. So in that case, what we do is we compare the key element with the first element and we tell that the key element is found. That is the best case. So the minimum effort that is required to give any kind of output by linear search algorithm is one comparison. So that is the minimum number of comparisons. But put it in other words, at least one comparison is needed to tell something about linear search algorithm. With less than one comparisons, the linear search algorithm cannot give output. That is best case. So this best case is analogous with the big omega notation. So that is what omega notation tells. It bounds from below, it tells faster than which you can't solve the problem. So here also best case tells what is the minimum effort that is required for you to solve this particular problem. Okay, so worst case is what is the maximum time the algorithm will take to give output for a given problem of some size n. Okay, put it in other words, what is the maximum effort that I have to put to solve this problem, more than which it is not required to solve that particular problem of size n. Okay, so say for example, in the linear search algorithm, if you take the worst case, it occurs when the key element is not present or it is present in the last position of the list. In that case, you will have to perform n number of comparisons before concluding that the key element is present in the last place or not present. So n number of comparisons is the maximum number of comparisons that you will make, more than which it is not required. You don't even have to perform n plus 1 comparison to give the output. After n comparisons, you are in a comfortable position to give output to the linear search algorithm. That is the worst case. So worst case can be told as longest time that the algorithm will take to give the output for a problem of size n, or the maximum time more than which the algorithm will not require to give output to the to this particular problem. It is analogous with the O notation. Okay, and next we have average case. So what is this average case? Average case is just like calculating average we do. So if we have 3 test marks, test 1 plus test 2 plus test 3 divided by 3 is average. So same way, if we have to perform an average case analysis, we have to consider all possibilities for that particular problem and divide by number of possibilities that we have considered. Okay, say like for if we take the linear search itself as the example, how many comparisons will be performed if the key is present in the first position, in the second position, if it is in the third position, fourth position, nth position, not found. So all of them we have to divide by n plus 1 and then we will get what is the average case. Okay, so this is analogous with the theta notation. Okay, so if we have to tell the best case of an algorithm, we can simply use omega notation. Okay, we can tell linear search belongs to omega of 1. Okay, or we can tell linear search belongs to O of n. Okay, so what does it mean? It means that the minimum effort that is required by linear search algorithm to give output is 1. Okay, one comparison or one time unit or whatever it is. So the maximum effort that you have to put in linear search to find a solution is n. Okay, linear with respect to the input. So this is how we have to understand the best case, worst case and average case efficiencies. And when we are analyzing an algorithm, the best case of efficiency may not be useful for us most of the times because the input to the problem will not be, generally the best case inputs will be the problem solved. Okay, so for the linear search, the key present at the first place. So we can't always have the key present at the first place whenever we are searching. So therefore, best case analysis most of the times may not be useful for us. It is the worst case that will be useful because we are telling the maximum effort that you can put to get solution. More than that, you don't need to put any effort to find the solution. Sometimes the worst case efficiency of an algorithm may be too worse, and also we can argue that the input will not be that worse. So the worst case input generally will be the problem solved in the complete reverse order. Okay, most of the times, not always, most of the times. Okay, so therefore we can argue that the input will not be that worse also most of the times. So therefore we can perform average case analysis, and if the worst case is too worse, not acceptable, then we on average, if the algorithm performs better, then we can consider the average case analysis. Like in quicksort, the worst case of quicksort is quadratic, but the average case is n log n. So therefore we can quicksort algorithm is acceptable because the average case analysis is n log n. Okay, so next we have to understand what we call as the order of growth. What do we mean by order of growth? Okay, let us discuss the order of growth after discussing. Okay, we'll finish off order of growth. So how do we understand order of growth? What do we mean by order of growth? Say we will take to a algorithms linear search and binary search for the searching problem. Okay, so and the input size, whatever is the input. So for 1000 numbers, how many comparisons will be performed by linear search in the worst case? Okay, in the linear search, 1000 comparisons will be performed. How many comparisons will be performed by binary search? Binary search requires only 10 comparisons because worst case efficiency of linear search is O of n and worst case efficiency of binary search is log n to base 2. Okay, so it requires only 10 comparisons. Now we will double the input, let us assume. When we double the input, linear search takes 2000 comparisons, whereas binary search takes only 11 comparisons. Okay, and if we double the input further, 4000 numbers, linear search requires 4000 comparisons in the worst case, whereas binary search requires only one extra comparison, that is 12. 8000, this will require 8000, this will require only one extra, 13,000. So in this particular fashion, you for 1 million, this will take 1 million comparisons, but this will take just 20 comparisons. Okay, so here what we can see is more than the number of comparisons that are done, as the input grows or reduces, how is it affecting the running time? Okay, so here as the input increases, the running time also increases accordingly. 1000, 1000, 2000, 2000, 4000, 4000. But here, even though the input doubles, the running time increases just only by a factor of 1. From 10 comparisons it increased to 11 comparisons, even though the input got doubled. Here also input got doubled, but the comparisons increased just by 1. This is what we call as order of growth. Okay, so now this is linear, this is logarithmic. If you have quadratic, you can see. So for 10 it will be 100, for 1000 it will be 1 million. Okay, so how the running time increases with the increase in the time. Okay, so that gives a rough idea about how the running time gets affected as the input grows in size or reduces in size. So that is what we mean by order of growth. So when we tell the population growth is exponential, we mean to tell the population grows by a factor of 2 to the power of n, means it always keeps doubling. Okay, so that is what we mean by exponential growth. So when we want to compare the efficiency of an algorithm, we need some standard curves, g of n's. So there are some standard curves with which we compare. They are called as the efficiency classes or the complexity classes. Okay, so we have say we have one constant, it is called as constant, okay, name. Then we have log n, it is called as logarithmic class. Then we have n, linear class. Then we have n log n, linearithmic class, n squared, quadratic class, n cube, cubic class, 2 to the power of n, exponential, and n factorial. It is written in the order of growth, means how fast the algorithm's running time increases with the increase in the input size. So constant is always constant. Okay, logarithmic is, it will always keep reducing by the same factor, that is logarithmic. Linear, okay, like linear search we saw, as the input increases the running time also increases. So this is linearithmic, n log n, n into logarithmic. This is quadratic, cubic, exponential. So these are the slowest efficiency classes. So exponential and factorial. Okay, together they generally are referred to as exponential classes. Okay, so if we have an algorithm in any of the efficiency classes over here, then the algorithm will be reasonably acceptable. As the efficiency goes to the lower efficiency classes, the algorithm may not be acceptable. So whenever we are talking about the efficiency of an algorithm, a new algorithm that we have developed, okay, we will tell the efficiency of the algorithm belongs to theta of n. So it means that on an average, this algorithm is almost same as the linear curve, whatever we get. Okay, or we may tell the efficiency of the algorithm belongs to O of n squared. Means we are telling whatever algorithm we have designed, it has an efficiency which is less than or equal to quadratic curve. Means the effort that we have to put is almost equal to an algorithm which has quadratic efficiency or less than that, but never more than that. Or we can tell belongs to omega of log n. Means it tells the minimum effort that we have to put is logarithmic, or it can be more than that, it cannot be less than that. Okay, so this belongs to, it is analogous to telling less than or equal to, for O notation, less than or equal to c into n squared. Okay, this one greater than or equal to c into log n, and this one is approximately equal to n. Theta means approximately, O means less than or equal to, omega means greater than or equal to whatever efficiency classes we have. So that is how we have to understand whenever we tell the efficiency of a algorithm. So when I tell merge sort belongs to n log n, then it means that theta of n log n, it is approximately same as any of the other algorithms which also has the efficiency of n log n. Okay, if I tell the efficiency of linear search is O of n, then it means that the linear search algorithm running time is less than or equal to any of the other algorithms which also has linear curve. It will never be more than that. Okay, thank you.